Control food, you control the people. Control food, you control the people.
Million people don't have enough to eat.
Food, you control the people. Food, you control the people.
The price for a kilo of bread will soon rise by 10 cents. Other baked goods could also follow suit.
Don't have enough to eat.
Yes, because according to bakers, wheat prices have increased tremendously. 2 years ago, they paid $21 for 100 pounds of flour. Now, they pay $45.
Nearly a billion people don't have enough to eat,
The citizens
mostly
there
in
have
South
seen
Asia.
inflation rates of 17% per month in the price of
are
food.
going through painful times by paying exorbitant prices for their daily needs.
Wheat reached its highest price in 28 years. The increases are already sparking unrest from Haiti.
Bread is the
to
most
Egypt.
popular product in Chile. We are the 5th highest consumer
People
nation,
don't have enough
and
to
every
eat.
price increase affects the whole country.
In a country where 20% of the population live below the line of poverty, for many, bread is not just a staple of the diet, it's all they eat. That's why bread has become a matter of national security in this country.
Areas of Africa, already short on food, high prices may mean starvation.
Millions of tons of food aid are needed for an estimated 850 million people worldwide who are malnourished. But the UN World Food Programme says it's becoming increasingly difficult to meet the demands because of rising food prices, particularly corn and wheat.
Prices, a factor in how all the riots really started and how all of it
Riots have
started.
broken out in provinces around the country. Bread at the heart of the issue.
Black marketing and illegal stocking are on the rise, but the government is indifferent to the issue.
Every 5 seconds, a child dies from a lack of food.
Mass starvation.
People who could no longer afford to eat.
Wheat is one of the world's most basic foodstuffs, but it's also a raw commodity like any other, what's known by traders as futures. But this futures trading also attracts speculators, and they are increasingly discovering grain as a financial playground. They buy and then sell for even higher prices, juggling with thousands of tons of grain.
Wheat markets in particular in this country are the outcome of a process of development of over 150 years. And that is why from about 1903 to 2003, the real price of wheat has gone down. And Goldman came up with a new idea and a new product, completely restructured this market
in a world
and completely
climate
threw
where
it out of
people are
whack.
generally distrusting currency, they're distrusting dollars. What is the classic hedge? What is the classic flight to safety? This was a new kind of investment that was made for people who wanted to put a lot of money in commodities and just let it sit there for a long time and let it grow. And this is really not how the commodity markets have worked. Really what you have are physical speculators and hedgers moving in and out of positions along with the seasons as the wheat comes and goes. But Goldman Sachs put together this new idea where they would simply buy and keep buying no matter what the market conditions. In other words, if the price of wheat went up, in the past people would sell at that point. Goldman
Instead of
would
a buy
continue
and
to buy.
sell order, like everybody does in these markets, they just started buying. When these contracts came due, they would do something called rolling it over into the next contract. So they would take all those buy promises they had made and say, okay, we'll buy more later. And plus, we're going to buy more now. And they kept on buying and buying and buying and buying. And plus, we're going to buy more now. Historically unprecedented pile of long, buy more. And plus, we're going to buy more
An
now.
agriculture futures bubble was inflated, just like the housing bubble, and by the same players.
Has introduced this completely unnatural and artificial demand to buy wheat. And that then set the price up. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, it was biofuel production, it was drought in Australia, it was floods in Kazakhstan. Let me tell you, hard red wheat generally trades between $3 and $6 per 60-pound bushel. It went up to $12, then $15. Then $18.
The number of hungry and food insecure people in the world increased
Money started
by
pouring into
250
these
million.
commodity index funds. And what we're seeing today are the effects of the fact that now speculators are outnumbering the physical hedgers by about 4 to 1 in
now
these
is
markets.
that there are just too many big investors that are betting on food solely to make a profit. They don't grow corn, they don't make cornflakes, they really never even want to take possession of any of these
There was
grains.
so much Wall Street money distorting prices that farmers and other guys who actually need commodity futures couldn't use them to keep their companies stable anymore.
These banks are not interested in the particular structure of any of these markets. The market was just an excuse. And so the fact that they threw these wheat markets out of whack didn't really matter to
Speculation
them.
accounted for 50% of the price of commodities.
As billions of people starved, they used that money to make billions of dollars for themselves.
I mean, what we've seen are food riots in more than 60 countries over the past 2 years.
When their daily bread moves up 80%, they've just moved right into the ranks of the food insecure. And it was not only in Burkina Faso. This was in America. You had 49 million hungry families in America. Unconscionable what happened in the sense that their speculation and their restructuring of these commodity markets pushed 250 million new people into food insecurity and starving and brought the world total up to over 1 billion people. This is the most abysmal total in the history of the world. Wall Street has completely lost touch with the reality. Lost touch with the reality. There's reality. There are real things. There's reality. There's their mathematical formula. There's virtuality on the one hand. And gee, I can make a lot of money by making a formula. And on the other hand, there's reality. There are real things that they are affecting, and they've completely forgotten about it. The devastating effect.
Of course, there was this mania of deregulation throughout the 1990s, and finally, by the end of the 90s, there were exceptions made, not for the people in the commodity business, but for people in the banking business. Certain banks were allowed to take huge positions in commodities that they were never before allowed to take.
You don't have to follow
this is what happens. The
limit.
markets are now being controlled by imaginary wheat. Imaginary wheat being bought and
the
sold
law is weak.
by financial giants is controlling the price of real wheat.
The law is weak. There are a couple problems. Number one, the limits are too high relative to the size of the market, so that somebody can dominate, even if the law were working perfectly.
Is really a sham.
Any one trader can own up to 25% of all the contracts. That's too many. That gives you too much power. Number two, even those limits themselves are not going to be implemented in full as the law was passed for the next 2 years. And so a lot more lobbying is going to happen over the next 2 years, and that would weaken.
This reform bill is really a sham.
Could weaken the law. And number three, the law allows for quite substantial exemptions. The law is weak from the limits, and the exemptions, that is, that you don't have to follow the limits, are based around the idea that a lot of the trading on the commodities market is, quote, legitimate hedging.
Bill is really a sham, really a sham, really a sham.
We're up against massive odds on the other side from Wall Street.
Does not cover in any way, shape, or form
the laws are too porous.
Sachs. And really, let's be honest here, it wasn't just Goldman, it was Goldman, and it was Bayer, it was AIG, it was Lehman, it was Deutsche, it was all across the board, JP Morgan Chase. What these banks were able to do in commodity markets, it's really outrageous. Unconscionable what happened in the sense that their speculation and their restructuring of these commodity markets pushed 250 million new people into food insecurity and starving and brought the world total up to over 1 billion people. This is the most abysmal total in the history of the world.
If you're interested in controlling excessive financial speculation, this is one specific area where you can really make a difference, where the debate is ongoing, where the issues have gotten very specific, and where the impact is immediate. We're talking about speculation driving up food prices, which is causing malnutrition throughout the world.
Goldman Sachs Commodities Index is the most heavily traded in the world. The company hoards rice, wheat, corn, sugar, and livestock, and jacks up commodity prices around the globe so that poor families can no longer afford basic staples, and many literally starve. Goldman Sachs is able to carry out its malfeasance at home and in global markets because it has former officials filtered throughout the government and lavishly funds compliant politicians.
So, these are really important issues, and there has been some movement as a result. We need to do more of focusing on progressive groups, focusing on this issue, and you have been supportive of that, and we need to do more of it. So this, we have to consider it as just a first step.
First, we have to acknowledge that in a certain sense, the Occupy Wall Street movement has already been victorious to the degree to which we have shifted public discourse toward truth and justice. So that's changing the spirit, the geist, the ethos, the atmosphere of a society that has been so locked into vicious lies that hide and conceal social misery.